Yeah, I will, thanks.
Well, thank you all for being here for tonight's City Council meeting. It's February 26, 2024. We will first get started with our roll call. Should we just have her
Councilor Causey. Here. Councilor McMorrin.
here?
Councilor Nielsen. Here. Councilor Lehman.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Councilor Andrade.
Present.
Thank you.
Great. Excellent. So tonight we'll be discussing review of our utility rates. We'll be looking at our capital improvement plan for the next year, an ordinance, correcting some language for our nominating petitions, and then we'll be having our council reports. But first we'll get started with public comment. Is there anyone signed up? So no one here for public comment. So we'll be first going to a discussion of utility rate reviews. And I can state that, so the Finance and Admin Committee went through our utility rates, and there's been an increase, as everything, there's been an increase in prices over the last few years. We have recommended that we increase utility rates by 2.5%, and we've provided information for comparables for both Lebanon and Newport. But you can see that if I look at the table, the first table in the staff summary report, that we had a kind of a balanced ending fund balance for a number of years. In 2021, we lowered our rates for both the base rate and, I believe, the volumetric rate. And since then, our has been going down to the point now where it's a problem. So staff's recommended that we increase the rate, try to make up for that. Yeah, Mike, do you want to speak to that? Any addition?
Sure. We're recommending that we increase the base rates. That's what's the biggest item that covers our operating expenses. It went down 67% a couple of years back. We're recommending coming back 15% so we get a utility rate study done. And as the mayor just pointed out, the water fund has been in a negative position. We've been putting money into the water treatment. The time to kind of stop putting money into it. So that we're recommending we could go back 67%, but no, we can't do that. So 15% for the volume rate change will pull it even.
I'm sorry, can you speak up, please? Your voice isn't being caught by the speaker microphone.
Oh, it's up there? Okay.
You can't look down and read it. You got to look up and read.
Yeah. Anyway, we're recommending a 15% base rate change and a 2.5 volume to bring the water back to even. And we're going to do the same with Stewart. We're going to do the same rates. We're going to do 15% for the base rates and 2.5% for the volume. That's our recommendation. And we can change it whatever we would like to do. We're not going to change. Let me rephrase that. We are going to change the street fees, the storm fees, we're gonna use the 2.5, the engineering news record, we're gonna use that percentage. So it's something we have we can grasp onto. And so the street funds, just the fees, we're gonna do those 2.5% just to round down, we're gonna do 2.5. And the rest of the fees, we're not gonna do. They were more administrative, we caught up last year. So basically, part of my report that I gave you is I gave you Exhibit A that shows you what the current rate is, and then the mean rate, and then round up to the nearest 5 cents. So I've done that for the water, sewer, and on the residential. And I do have something here, I'll pass out in a minute, that I'll give you an example of what it does to a family of 4 that uses 2 units per month. So you've got to look at that in a minute. And then of course, we did the same thing for the commercial, multi-industrial. We increased 15% for the base rate and 2.5 for the volume. That's all we just number the base rates, and that brings us up to where we are. We're past the utility rate study. We have to do that beginning next year. That's good because I've got enough on my plate right now to do another RFP. So that's our recommendation. We've given you a resolution, and then I've given you example from Lebanon and Newport, Albany, and Corvallis versus Jefferson. I looked at them. I didn't really feel like time trying to figure it out. It's probably simple, but I just didn't have time for it. So I didn't give those to you. So what I've also given you two is attachment A and B, which is this is the fees that they're gonna. This will be as of July 3rd. Everything for utility. That's my report. Any questions?
Dr. Kazi.
Two questions for you. Can you remind me, are most residential meters
3/4.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question, please?
are most residential meters 3/4 inch or 1 inch? And the answer is 3/4.
Thank you.
My is increase the water rates. That's very clear, but the sewer fund has had an increasing ending balance. So I find it hard to justify the same increase there.
Yeah, the way we're looking at it is we've got 1952 water sewer lines that we're going to start replacing. We're going to probably finish up here, pause the water fund for a year, probably 2 or 3 years, and then shift over to the sewer line. So we need to start preparing, keep that line, keep that funding going. Because when we get to the CIP, you're going to see that the sewer rate, the sewer fund, it's running down on cash too. So, but we're planning to do some 1952 sewer lines 2 years out. So we're building to the future before we get a rate change. Do a rate study. Sorry.
In that case, would it be possible to defer the vote on this until we've looked at the capital improvement plan?
That's not my call. That's your call.
Yeah, because we're looking at it tonight.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's not big of a deal. Did you have your hand up, Council Lehman?
So I haven't dug into this in great detail, but it seems to me that I was on the Finance and Admin Committee when we decided to lower the rates, and that happened right after we got word that we were going to get $12 million or whatever from the state, which was the reason why we had the rates so high. I get inflation and I get that we need to increase the rates. I don't see the 67% increase being necessary. I just don't see it. I'm a little alarmed at a 15% increase in the base rate. That seems like higher than inflation increase, and I'm just wondering where the expenses have increased dramatically, because it doesn't look like our total expenditures don't look like, they look like they're going up, but it doesn't look like it's going up more than 3 or 4% a year. And the big capital outlay for the water budget, obviously we get that, and that's why we have the rates so high. Before that was to save up the money so that we can make that big expenditure. So I'm just confused how we ended up at negative 42, because that certainly wasn't in there when we did our last budget, and I just would like some clarification on that.
A lot of it is based on water usage. Water usage per household is down. It's been going down the last 2 to 3 years. It's the cost of water goes up and the cost of everything goes up. People are conserving water more, and so we're not selling as much water as we used to. And I appreciate you looking at our expenditures. Our expenditures have not gone up dramatically in the sewer or the water. It's just we're not selling as much of the water, which means our revenues have dropped dramatically. But again, our expenditures aren't going down with them. We still have to provide the lines and the service and the maintenance and all those things. So it's really a matter of expenditures have creeped a little bit, but our revenues have come down dramatically because the so much.
Right. And isn't there a formula that we used that was like each unit of water costs us this much in chemicals and this much in labor? And isn't that how we're theoretically supposed to figure out what the water rate is?
Theoretically, that's what we look at for the base rate. But we have always, in most cities, we have always not fully accounted for that in the base rate as a way to kind of artificially
Kinda
keep
pay
the
as you
cost
go.
down
Yeah.
for your smaller households. And I did make the statement in the finance committee, and I'll repeat it here because I think there's a lot of truth to it. I believe the assumption used to be that if you were a smaller household, 1 unit or two, using 2 to 4 units of water, that somehow because you were a smaller household, you couldn't afford as much. And so we were keeping that cost base rate lower because if you were using lower water, then your rate would be lower overall, as opposed to using more water, higher water usage. You would capture that in the use rate as opposed to the base rate. And I think there is a bit of a flaw in that, especially with our current makeup of our current population of households. I believe some of our more affluent households are those that only are using 2 to 4 units of water per month, but yet we're discounting that. We're subsidizing that base fee with the usage fee, and this won't completely correct that issue, but it's at least going to address it and put more of the expense, more of the collection on the base that everybody pays regardless of your usage, but less of what we're collecting, less of the percentage we're collecting on the actual usage itself. So again, it's still offset, but it's less offset than what it used to be. We used to be very, very intentional to keep the base as artificially low as we could and make up for it in usage. With usage dropping, that's not working as well. So we do need to get the base rates up. They've been artificially low for a long time, intentionally. And it's a little bit of a shift in how we've tried to get the revenues in than what we've done in the past.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor Andrade.
Yeah, I have a couple questions because I don't like the increases in these rates and fees, and I'm sure no one does really. But to clarify, why the school irrigation rates, that is separate from what they pay for regular water, correct? Like they have an irrigation fee and they have a this is what we use for drinking fountains and stuff like that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, just because the way that it's set up in the utility rates, it's very unclear, and it might we might want to add some more clarification to it. I was only just realizing it when I was reviewing it again today. And then just the idea that multi-residential is grouped with commercial as opposed to what's a single family residence. I don't think that sets a good precedence, I guess, or a good association with it, because the fact is they are residential users, the multifamily housing. And to that point, I was looking up the water and sewer rates for other municipalities similar in population and also slightly larger, um, but they tended to have higher commercial rates than than residential, or higher rates for commercial users as opposed to residential users. And I know that that can be a little tricky because we don't want to discourage businesses from coming here. And also, I think that's something really important that we should be considering. Um, and like, even if it's just a little bit more than the residential users, because the fact of the matter is that a lot of people spend a lot of time at the workplace. They use water, they use the restroom. A lot of them use water for manufacturing and stuff like that. And I would like to see that help offset these costs that keep going towards the people who live in our community. Um, Also, is there a school rate for the sewer and for the city? This, or for the school and the city for a sewer?
There's not a special rate, no, that's just the irrigation rate, that's special.
Okay. Um, I also would be interested in taking a look at those irrigation rates again because that feels really low, especially for summer. Um, and it appears like it's only the school and the city that are using irrigation.
Only the school and the city are eligible for the discounted rate.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, concerns? You want to move to postpone? Table it?
Postpone the vote on this item until we review the capital improvement plans.
Second?
Okay. All in favor of tabling this until after the capital improvement plan, please raise your hand now. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next on the agenda, capital improvement plan.
Improvement plan 2024 and 2025. I want to first thank Public Works, Kevin Fear, Gary Black, and Mike Marzinski for pulling all of this together. It was definitely a team effort, as it's been. I want to thank the Finance Committee, or excuse me, the Public Works Committee for reviewing this as well, going through the list of projects and going through all the expenses and helping pull this together for the approval. So technically, this is coming out of the Public Works Committee directly. Councilor Causey, did you want to speak directly to it, or do you want me to jump in to summarize, or whatever you'd like?
Go ahead and summarize.
So again, we look out 5 years. We actually start with the facility improvement schedules. Are you guys all looking at those first as well? Okay, so we'll start at the start. In the draft versions, we were doing this at the end, but here it is. So facility improvement schedule. This is an effort to put money towards future expenditures that we know are going to come, whether it's remodeling, to make room for additional employees or to make improvements, or it's, as you can see, the parking lot we know needs to get done periodically, HVAC needs to get replaced periodically. So we try to account for that ahead of time by paying ahead, which means we don't have to have a huge reserve and contingencies in case the roof starts to leak or in case the HVAC fails. We planned very proactively to have that money sitting there. Councilor Moore.
I just had one question. Model, it says 28, 29. We're pushing that back, or were we planning to do that? Yes.
Can you please repeat that louder? Thank you.
Yes. For City Hall remodel, is that, I know we talked about doing that this summer. Is that, and on here it says 28, 29.
Should be corrected.
Okay, cool.
Should be corrected 24, 25.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, to note the City Hall project, we have gone out and been talking with a architect on what a remodel for City Hall would be. I'll go through my list of 5 reasons right now, and we went through this with the Public Works Committee as well. On the top, towards the top of that list is the ADA accessibility. We've got a parking stall here and a ramp for this door, but we have nothing at the main office door for ramp or parking. It is here, so technically we meet kind of the letter of the law, but really we're not seen as very approachable for ADA standard wise. We also have an issue with our double door system. We don't have an automated door for people that may be in a wheelchair or handicap and need that door accessibility. And if we were to install one in our current door system, we defeat the purpose of the double door, which is having that breezeway there so that you can open one door, close it, and open the next door, and you don't get the big draft coming into City Hall every time the doors are open. So it's not a big enough area where somebody could come in and then open the next door and have it open. That door opens into that little breezeway area. So essentially, we're not really set up great for that. Our counter isn't as low as it would need to be for servicing. So there's just some ADA compliance issues that we should address. So as we worked with the architect, we've addressed many of those issues, all of those issues, and then some. We're also looking at a better accessibility, even getting through the parking lot from the sidewalk, safe crossing to get across the sidewalk, even to get to the front door safely. So that's been addressed in there as well. The next issue that comes up is safety for our employees. Our current system, although it's very friendly, it's also puts all of our employees at quite a bit of risk of danger. If somebody were to come in with malintent, we're all sitting ducks. Well, I'm not as much, and Chelsea's not as much, and Mike would probably be okay, but the rest of the staff.
That will not be.
So it's been a concern. It's been raised by our employees. We've had incidences where people have thrown pens at employees and come in and been aggressive. We have people that come in directly from court and getting told that they're paying a fee, and then they go into next door to pay the fee. They're not very happy about it. And so we've, again, now exposed everybody to that type of situation. We have panic buttons at several of the stations. We find that they work most of the time, and sometimes they don't work. Panic buttons are supposed to go directly to next door to the police department so they can get over here. And so you hope you can survive that long, right? Until they can get here if it went through. We found the last time we used it, it went to 911 dispatch, and then it got put on the board for dispatch, and then we waited until somebody got dispatched. And that didn't happen as quickly as what a panic button should have. So there's issues with safety for our employees. So that's up there in that top 1 and 2 spot. Third, we've got some issues with needing a little bit more space. We're crowded, we're full. I mean, I have no space for anybody. It's anecdotal, but we did have an opportunity. We had a grad student came across the city manager's listserv, said, hey, I'm graduating, I've got some time. If anybody wants to come do some work for you on a pro bono basis for 6 months, I can work on economic development. I can help you get a grocery store into your town. I can do all this great stuff. Give me a call. And I thought, man, that'd be awesome. I don't have a place to put you. I would love to have a place that I could have a part-time employee or whatever it be, and I just don't have it. We are at our max, and then some. And that's just kind of the fact that our planner is now in a closet space 40 hours a week. And we try to open the door every once in a while, get some fresh air in there, and it's not ideal. For a planner that was here 4 hours a week, it worked, right? It doesn't work so much anymore. It's a tight spot for a small office space. We've got, there's a few other things here. I won't go on and on, but there's definitely some revisions that could be made to make a better arrangement and more space for additional capacity there. But really the purpose of this upgrade that I'm looking at, this remodel, isn't for adding a lot of capacity. It will add some capacity, but we are really looking at this as kind of a phase 1 approach, which is we need to do all the things I've talked about so far. We also want to add some aesthetics. We talked Timbertown. We required Timbertown. We're doing a facade improvement grant that's encouraging and paying for Timbertown theme. But yet City Hall is kind of plain Jane and hasn't changed a whole lot since it was built. So we want to do some facade improvements on the outside of this, add in some Timbertown elements that we're encouraging others to do. Give the outside of City Hall a little bit of facelift, maybe put City Hall on the building somewhere so people know what building it is. Get some lighting on it from the outside so people know what it is past 4 o'clock in the winter, so you can find it. Those types of things. But everything that we do and that we work with the architect on, everything that we've done is kind of in this front area. And we know that eventually the city will continue to grow and eventually we are going to need to add more staff. And so any additions to the building will be to the back or to the side. They're not going to be things where we're tearing out the stuff we just did up front and in the lobby, et cetera. We're having to tear all that out 5 or 10 years from now. Everything we do with this project and remodel will stay and we will extend and grow our footprint out to the back. Having a bunch of stuff in front. So it's kind of a multi-phase approach here. We're really just focused on this first phase on taking care of those issues that I've addressed already. We've bumped this project up. If you look at last year's CIP to this year's, we were about half that amount of money. You'll also notice the police upgrade remodel has been zeroed out. That's where the additional money came from. So I'm talking to the Public Works Committee, Finance Admin Committee, thank you. Yeah, it was Finance Admin Committee. Finance Admin Committee, we've bumped that money up and into the City Hall remodel because it's done now. The police department just got some work done. We're not stealing money from their parking lot or HVAC. This is just for their remodel. They're in good shape there. Mike's recalculated 20 years out how much we need to put towards that project to get to 2029, 2030. There's some funding there for them. So that's a switch from last year's CIP to this year's. And again, the whole point being to go ahead and take on that upgrade remodel this year, which in my opinion is sorely needed. So I want to make sure that the council is comfortable with that reasoning and good with that. And if so, we'll go ahead and roll that into the budget and you'll see that $420,000 number in the budget this year for a City Hall remodel. Any questions on that? It was a little winded, I know, but I hadn't talked about to this group about that project yet.
Sort of a detail you had mentioned, like you might need to shift things around during construction. Like, do you have any more info on that? Or okay, all right, we'll talk about that later.
I imagine we will find space either at the police department,
Okay.
maybe Public Works if we had to, but when I lay awake at night and think through it, I walk through the police department and find little areas where we could create some office space and make that work for. But initially, we were told like 3 months worth of time, so we'll figure that out.
And are you thinking that the 420 would be adequate to do the remodel? We're not having to.
So we're still preliminary design work with them. I believe the first number that came back was 478. But then we've redone a bunch of stuff and regurgitated. So I don't have a great number there, but that's the target. And if it looks like it's going to need more than that, then I'll be coming back to you and maybe we steal some from the parking lot. I don't know yet, but that'll be the target at the 420. And there may be some of the niceties that we've added in there. The thicker glass and some of that stuff that we may have to find different options for. But this is a good budgetary working number for us right now. Yeah. Some of the exterior facade stuff, some stonework below and stuff, that's stuff that could be put off till later if we had to. So we'll see.
Yeah. So Andrade?
Yeah, first of all, as I said before, I love it. I love that we're getting additional accessibility for City Hall. It's going to look great. It's going to be more welcoming. This is awesome. We need to do this now. The question I have has to do with the swapping out of transfers, the transfer amounts between the police remodel and the City Hall remodel. So I know the Finance and Admin Committee were concerned about saving enough money. And so they increased the transfer to $40,000 instead of the $14,000, whatever it was before. It says that it's pushed out to 2930. fiscal year 29-30, but there's a lot of things going on around then. And I'm concerned that that might be too soon and it might need to be pushed out farther, especially if we need more funding for City Hall upgrades in that project. What are your thoughts on that? Because there's the library upgrade that's going to be happening that same year. There's like a bunch of new vehicles that are being bought then as well. Like,
Number got updated either. I'm kind of looking at Mike too. I think would be,
Pick a number, yeah, I was told to get $200,000 back as soon as we could.
yeah, I mean, if we look at 20 years to replace, if we go 20 years out from 2024, we're at 2044. So
Yeah,
I think we update that to 2044, 45. You gonna be here, Ron, still?
to clarify, so are you saying to change the date to 2044,
Remodel
45?
in 2044, 45, yeah,
Okay.
to match the 20 years to replace.
Mhm. Cool. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure because it was a little, seemed really soon.
One quick other thing I was curious about with the ADA accessibility, will that or could that, and I don't mean to add to costs, but also include some of the interior doors, like for the hallway or the restrooms, that not just the exterior doors? I don't think it necessarily needs to include like, people's offices and stuff, but just sort of those, like if someone in a wheelchair was at a city council meeting and needed to go to the bathroom.
It would be through this, so we won't have the lobby will be enclosed on all four walls.
Right.
And so that won't be where we'll let the public come into that employee area. Anybody using the public restroom would have to come through this way, like during meetings. I think that's an ADA door. I think that's a 32 or 34, but we could look at it. It's
I
definitely.
know our building official has reviewed this building in the past and says that it is technically complete.
I just mean like the kind that you can open with a
Which
button.
Oh,
Not a door. Thank you, that's the one.
I will say that I used to be responsible for calling the door companies to fix those. They do break down a lot, so the more you have of them in a facility, the more costs you're gonna have, or the fact that they're down, and when they're down, they cause an issue. I think the current issue is, like with staff, is that if there is someone outside, we can't even know to go assist them. Like, we can't see them if we're behind counters. Whereas if someone were in here for a function, there are likely to be people who could help if someone for some reason couldn't use the ADA handle and navigate that. So I do think it's a little bit different than us trying to gain access to the building. It is an ADA handle, but I know what you're saying, but it is definitely a cost consideration and an ongoing maintenance consideration.
Lehman?
So, I mean, are we just talking about this page in general? Okay. So, for the parks equipment, it says total funding for, and that adds up to 180,000, but then in the future estimated cost, it's only 150,000. So that's
go down over the next 10 years.
Yeah,
probably, that's been the trend. And then just to point out that if you do the 20 years at 40 grand each, that's 800,000, not the 500,000 that it says there.
I plan to cut it off in 5 years.
The 40,000 a year is a catch up because we zeroed it out, and then after 5 years of the catch up, so we'll just
Okay.
So yeah, we'll get there. On the parks equipment, I think the intent there is we're going to put the 25,000 a year towards it, and we'll do those projects as we get funding. There's some grant funding, there's other sources there, but we want to have some funding going towards that equipment replacement.
Great.
I think you kind of answered. I was just curious, like, we have these 3 projects and they were all scheduled for 26, 27, and I was just wondering sort of, but I think you were saying that's not actually kind of the plan. Like, I was like, why don't we just do Triangle Park this year and then we can do the other 2 next year? But I see what you're saying, that just sort of adds incomes.
Yeah, yeah, we didn't want to get that scripted on the park equipment. So the 26, 27 would be when we'll have some funds to do it, but yeah, we've got Triangle Park, I think, in this year.
That's what I thought, yeah.
It'll happen as we go.
Okay, 'cause that's why I thought it said 150 then, was because it was for the two things that weren't.
Oh.
But I think we all just read it differently, so.
Yeah, if it's here, it'll be in the budget. Last thing I'll bring up on this page is on the library. We had our third and final interview for the feasibility study for the library. All of the costs came in a little over double of what we had anticipated for a feasibility study. Well, at least two of the three that we interviewed were over that. So we need to do the feasibility study. We need to pay the price, what it's going to cost to do a feasibility study. We will talk about cost as part of the evaluation, but we didn't want the evaluation. I think that's typically a great way to pick a consultant for this type of design and build project, or the feasibility study. So again, it'll be a consideration, but it's not just going to be lowest bid. So I'd like to get an okay from the council tonight to bump that 30,000 up to 70. We'll take it out of the library remodel dollars, so it'll just be a direct line item transfer. But just want to make the council aware and again get a thumbs up on spending the money that we need to spend potentially for a feasibility study on that.
Sounds good to me.
Was there any private donation that went into the feasibility study?
The library director thought there might be, but I think they're going to withhold until we get into construction.
Can you repeat what it is that they're withholding? I couldn't hear all of the question.
There was potential that somebody might be willing to donate to help pay for the feasibility study. And so we were looking into that, but it turns out they're going to wait and potentially donate to the actual construction.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
Or remodel, whatever the case may be. Yep. Okay, so Mike, you have note of that. Just bring 40,000 from the remodel line item down to the feasibility, conceptual design line item.
Next page.
So unless there's questions there, I'll be much more brief on these. I don't anticipate a lot of changes here, but definitely if you see something, let me know. But you'll see water plant, you'll see the reservoir, Evac Hill, Seismic Reservoir. Again, at the top section, on top of the first shaded column, that's where the revenues are coming in. So our revenue that comes in, the grants are there. Any financing through business organs there, interest on the income that we've got for money saved already is there. So that's revenue, and then underneath that's going to be those expenses. You'll see under the first column reserve is again what we have in reserve, as well as we've included grant and outside funding. And then the next column over is the STC improvement, and the next column over is STC and reimbursement. The goal is to try to use STC funds any chance that we are able to. So anytime we're expanding the system itself, we want to, and it's STC eligible, we want to try to use those STCs. So on each of these projects, we've gone through and had the engineer tell us what percentage of this is improvement from STCs, what percentage of this could be reimbursement for STCs, what percentage needs to just be paid for with those utility rates or the grants or other funding that came in. So that exercise has been done and I'll just tell you blanket statement, we try to use those STCs whenever possible. We're never going to not spend STCs and spend general revenue instead or utility fees instead. We want those developer dollars that have been paid into the system to go towards those systems that are being impacted. And then again, you can see the list of projects down the side. A few of them there for this year, just the one for next year, for storage testing, and then Public Works Director's added a few more projects in, looking out a few more years. But you can see it's very aggressive for this year. mostly in part to the big projects that are in process and going to be completed. The other big impact is the county is coming through and going to repave 19th Street. So we're getting ahead of that repaving by replacing the old water lines and sewer lines that are in that section of the street before it gets repaved and we have something go bad with the pipe underneath it and have to cut into a brand new paved street. So these are, these aren't 5-year-old pipes. These are old pipes. They need replaced, but they got fast tracked a little bit because of the county project coming up.
Councilman Moore.
The only question I had was on this 50,000, just where that's coming from. I mean, I know we talked about that in our ARPA discussion, but it's just not, it's not in any of the categories.
Yeah, there's some ARPA funding that was dedicated toward it. And then there was going to be, well, first and foremost, we've applied for a FEMA grant. And then the ARPA funds that were going towards it, we're going to be subject to whether or not we got the FEMA grant or not. And the council's not made decisions there until we know.
Okay.
And then we also had some water, I believe some water reserves that we're going to pay for the difference of that. So even if we don't get the grant from FEMA, there's funding to move that project forward this year. Parts have already been ordered.
Right.
It's ready to go. If we get the FEMA grant, then it will just change the amount of FEMA dollars that we have available for some of the other overages and other projects on other things that have been identified already.
I need to move that over to the reserve side. I think it's just out.
That's my question, yeah. It's like, when are we gonna, when are we gonna
spend?
spend that 150 grand?
Yep.
Yep.
Right.
Should be this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, good catch.
Did I see your hand up?
I was gonna ask the same question.
Councilman Andrade?
I can't remember if it was the water or if it was the sewer, if it was both, but some of the wording in the CIP during the Finance and Admin Committee meeting didn't really make it clear if it was just a new pipe because it's failing or if it's being upsized also. And wanting to make sure that we get the SDCs used if it is the upsizing, since that's the only way we can use the SDCs for replacing pipe like that. So were you able to check in on that about whether we were able to apply any SDCs for any of those that might have been an upsize?
Yeah, and I did ask, but the person I asked didn't know. And I'll admit I did not get back to the person that would know to answer that question. So I'll apologize. I don't know that
Okay.
for sure.
Okay. It would be great if we could get that answer so that we could potentially use some of those funds.
Yeah.
And then potentially talk about a reimbursement district if we were able to.
We have SDCs available, so if it is the case we can use them, we'll put that into the budget, and I'll make sure we point that out when we're talking through the budget on this item.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, we'll know between now and then. So it doesn't necessarily change approval of the CIP, it'll just be a change in what the budget actually reflects.
Awesome, thank you.
You bet. Thanks for that reminder.
Page or?
Sewer's a little more straightforward. Still spending money on good projects. Again, you'll see South 16th Street in front of the elementary school. 17th Street and 18th Street. This is the ARPA funding that's been identified for those projects. And then South 19th Street, again, getting ahead of the county's project. 18th Street is a surprise. It was not on last year's CIP. This year we discovered the county was doing this project, so it's got and bumped up as a priority as well. But again, this is old pipe. This is not 5-year-old pipe. It was on the schedule to get replaced. It just got fast forwarded a little bit because of that county project. You'll see some projects for next year. 11th Street sewer line that's finishing up. What didn't get done as part of the 11th Street local improvement district. There is some 52-hour pipe up there that needs to be replaced. And then you can see the projects out there for 3 years out on Applegate, 8th, and the 15th Street sewer.
Councilman Moore?
First question for engineering of the South 17th Street and 18th Street. It says we spent $48,000 and the total project cost $104,000. Are we planning to spend another 50-something thousand this year, or has the engineering cost gone down?
That's pretty much it.
So that just came in under budget.
Yeah, that won't go over budget.
Okay. And then the 15th Street trunk sewer, 8th and College, Applegate and 20th, those have costs in reserve in 26, 27. Is that the total project cost? And if so, can we put that in the total project cost? Like, is there gonna be additional years of costs for those, or are those numbers in reserve the total project costs for those?
Yeah, so if the concern is being $1 million short, if we do all three
That
of those
was a
projects
concern.
in 26, 27, then yeah, it'll be looking for other funding sources. We just don't know them yet or haven't identified them yet. We just want to make sure that we are tracking which projects are kind of those next priority projects. Next year's CIP will know more, and the year after that we'll know even more. So
I guess I just mostly wanted there to be numbers in the total project cost column. Because it's hard for me to know this 800,000 in reserve in 26, 27. Is that the entire project, or is that there's 800 coming out of reserve in 26, 27 plus 200 coming out of SDC in 27, 28 plus that kind of stuff?
got it.
Yeah.
Well, at the very least, we can put them under total project cost. We can run that over, but I don't know that we're far enough along to know.
Right. I think that's okay, but just
Breakdown.
yeah, I mean, just knowing if that.
Right-hand side, left-hand side.
Bring them under total project cost. Yeah.
Yeah, just knowing if those numbers in 26, 27 is that all it's going to cost. And yeah, that red 1 million did concern me. Yeah.
Sweet.
Counselor Causey?
Yes, maybe I'm asking the same question differently, but, the 24, 25 projected balance, the year-end balance of so that's at the current sewer rates.
Right.
So this does not take into account any rate increase.
At this point, no.
Okay. So that would indeed be lower than, significantly lower than
Entirely possible.
current balances. And is the big driver, is 19th Street the big driver for increased costs that are being incurred?
Yeah, that was we knew we were spending $1,078,000 on 17th and 18th, and we knew we were spending the 375. We knew it was going to be 300,000 to 500,000 for 60. But this time last year, we did not know about the 1.35 that we would like to spend to get ahead of the 19th Street repaving project. So, and I will just say, to Benton County's credit, or dismay, did let us know about the project. It would have been nice to know a couple of years ago about the project so we could have planned accordingly, but they did at least let us know that they were planning to repave this year, and they've put it off in their schedule a year to give us time to get ahead of them a little bit, or to catch up to them, so to speak. So they've postponed their project a year so that we can do this work this year, and then they'll come in and pave next year. Otherwise, their plan was to pave this year. And we said, whoa, we've got some water and some sewer and some things we would want to take care of before we have a 5-year moratorium on cutting it into that new pavement. So anyway, would have been nice to know, but I don't know what their timing was either. This was long-term, something they were planning on doing, but it was a nice flag up to say, hey, keep us in the loop when you're planning to be in Philomath, because we have other projects that are going to be impacted, like a $1.35 million sewer line in there to replace. So.
Do we know when they repave it? Are they going to make there be less of a elevation gradient?
I don't want to. I don't believe they will be able to. I think that's a ODOT road issue that.
Yeah, that's a state highway, coming up against a county road.
Yeah, I don't think the county's looking to fix that problem that was created, not by them.
I see someone else's hand up. Okay. Next page. Street projects, 16th Street is the big one.
That goes out for bid this month. At the end of the month, it'll be out for bid. So by next month, we'll know who the contractor is, and they'll be moving forward on that project. The 17th Street crossing, you'll see there, the cost has gone up pretty dramatically on that project. Still see it as a priority, and so we're gonna look for some grant funding for that, Safe Routes to Schools, to try to get that funded 24-25. Staff had recommended we bump that out a year, but the Public Works Committee strongly encouraged to look for some grant funding for this year, so we've reprioritized that for this year. 13th Street streetlight upgrade is taking place now, but we'll have some spillover into next year, likely next fiscal year. And the other projects you can kind of see out for next year, 19th Main, and then some TSP projects. These are smaller projects that are in the TSP. Mostly they're geared towards safe routes to school, crosswalks, it's restriping and that type of thing. So we've bundled those together, but just finance wise, those have been bumped out a couple of years with the street fund to keep us in the black. Any questions on streets? Go to parks. In Cochran Veterans Memorial Park, we'll be wrapping up. The park looks terrific. I was out there today. We had some ROTC members from Oregon State there putting the rest of the playground equipment together. Tomorrow, Public Works will put the last 2 benches in and cement those. And the park will essentially be open to be able to play on and be safe for kids to play on. So the neighborhood can start using it. We still have a pavilion that's going to be constructed. And we've still got the monuments that are going to go in for the veterans side of things. And that's being worked on. The money you're seeing there is, if we get in a position where that doesn't get finished up this year, then we'll need it in the budget to be able to finish it off next year. But we're crossing fingers and hoping that our consultants we're working with and the contract we're working with will be able to get something in quickly, but quickly could be several months.
Yeah. Want to walk on the turf now?
Yes. Please walk on the turf.
Yeah,
Roll on the
great.
turf. Great.
I've got
It's very soft.
furry companion who is dying to get on the turf.
We need to get some signs ordered right away.
No pets.
Exactly.
Another one.
Just the one question on Cochrane Park, for total project cost 298, expenses 248, but still potentially 100,000. Am I sort of?
Yeah, I just noticed that too, it's 50,000 short, they changed the number on me a day or two, and I didn't change the 298, so that's the budget.
I'm sorry, can you speak louder?
The total project cost went up $50,000, for the, I don't remember what it was, I think the memorial, and then something else, but anyway, they just didn't do that again. Let them go up 50,000.
Okay. You'll see the roller sports park construction is looking at it 26-27. Pedestrian lighting at City Park is bumped to next year, 25-26. And then the big one in there is the council talked about is the money going into Skirvin Park, the rodeo grounds. So that's the money that came in already, plus the additional anticipated grant that we're going to apply for. And obviously, if we don't get the grant, that $800,000 doesn't get spent. So it's primarily the 1.9 plus whatever grant money we can get in, or loan money on that $500,000 loan that was approved.
I was just looking at the Triangle Park, and it looks like we're not doing it until 25-26, but I think we previously discussed that we're doing it
Right away.
now, right?
I believe that was the
I
conversation.
think it was supposed to be 24, 25.
Bump that one over, Mike. Triangle Park, bump it to 24-25.
I'm sorry, what's that, the triangle?
Yeah. Triangle Park,
Okay.
30,000. We'll do that this year.
Got it.
24, 25.
Next page.
Right now, it's just the storm that's associated with the 16th Street project.
Easy.
And although Mike, isn't the streetscape bioswale, are we thinking we're not gonna get invoiced until next year, or?
Yes, it could happen this year. I don't know what Odell's gonna do.
So if we've got it budgeted this year, if we get an invoice, if we don't get the invoice till completion of the project after July, then we'll pay it then, so.
It's just gonna roll forward for the pay next year.
That's what it is, it's the bioswale that's been completed already.
So that would never increase. Just overruns on
Yeah,
the thing
this
they
is the
already
city's
finished.
commitment for that project, for that aspect.
Okay.
And then the path, this is money we get that comes in from ODOT that we have to spend on adjacent pedestrian, bicycle trails and stuff, so we're gonna light up that current crossing the island just this way, just west of the Boulevard Apartments. It's not as bright and lit up as it used to be with the reflective. So the last several years, those have worn down, so we're gonna re-up that. Then we're also gonna spend some money for the 17th Street crossing improvement to be a good use of some of those funds to help. Vehicle rolling equipment, replacement schedule. I have to have your questions on this. A couple things to note, as police vehicles have gotten much more expensive. We're looking at about $80,000 to purchase and outfit a police vehicle. For this year, on the Parks Department, we're looking at a new tractor. The other stuff is out a few years still, so not a lot of big purchases for us this year outside of the police vehicles and the tractor. I will just note on the vehicles, the timing on the police vehicles is funky because we're having to pre-order those like a year plus in advance. And so if we don't want to wait 3 years for a vehicle, you buy it now when it gets here in a year and a half. The timing is odd, and it's messing with our finances a little bit, but at the end of the day, we're replacing vehicles on the schedule that they're set to be replaced. It just may not fall the exact time we need it based on when we buy it because of the delays.
Councilor McMoy?
Are we surplusing the Tahoe and just we're not replacing it with we're replacing it with something else, or sort of how does that work for police? Sorry, what is I see that's going to gov deals.
Yeah, it'll be sold, and it's going to be replaced with one of the Chargers below there.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And so then, does this mean there'll be two? Do we have two Chargers right now? Or we will have two?
We will have two. We have one that's not been put in service yet, and we have another that's been ordered.
Okay.
Councilor Andrade?
I understand that there's weird things going on with needing to purchase police vehicles in particular ahead of time. But I still don't understand how that means we still have to purchase, 4 vehicles in 1 year. Because to me, I see a 2021, 2 2022s, and a 2016 model vehicle. And presumably, I know that they weren't received those years. They were received at least 1 year later, if not at least 2 years. my question has to do with what's the mileage like on all of those, and like what are the qualifications for rescheduling them because I or replacing them, because I have a hard time, like Philomath is a small town, like our footprint isn't that big compared to other towns, and so it's really hard for me to believe that um 6 years that that they should be replaced every 6 years. It feels like it should be more than, or it should be much longer than that. um I did listen to to the police committee meeting before and heard the discussion about this, and it's still just um, I need more clarification on this because as it is, I'm not comfortable with the replacement schedule for that.
Yeah, all I can say on that is there's a schedule in place, and the 6 years is a long time for a police vehicle that's in service as long as it is. At some point, it starts costing you more money to maintain them than it costs to get a new vehicle. Um, I will speak specifically to the F-150. That's the chief's truck, and it doesn't have nearly the mileage on it that the others. So that one just happens to fall. I mean, it could easily go out probably one more year or 2 more years, but planning ahead, we do know eventually that vehicle's going to need to be replaced. So that's a little bit of the oddity why you're seeing 3 vehicles rather than just 2, is because
Isn't it
that's against
4?
2016.
4 of them say that they're being replaced in 2029, 2030.
So you're saying? Yeah, and again, I think it's on when you're ordering them versus when they're coming.
But they're all going to be coming at the same time, right?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. And then thank you for the clarifications. My other question has to do with, no, I lost it. I'll come back.
Have technically accumulated the balance that at any time, any of them might need to be replaced sooner, and then you juggle the rest of the schedule.
Yeah, Ruth's comment was when you would have the funding available to do the replacement based on the current schedule and how much money we're putting aside toward them. And I mean, that's another way to look at it. We want the funding to be available so that when the car becomes more expensive to maintain than to own, we've got the funding set aside to put it towards that vehicle. So I will admit we're still trying to get a handle on the police vehicles, and it's not been made easier with the ordering process, but we used to just look at the budget and say, hey, do we have money for a new vehicle this year? And we just pulled it directly out of the general fund, or we didn't. It wasn't until a couple of years ago we started trying to put money toward vehicles every year. And so I will admit we're still trying to hone this in just right, Councilor Andrade. So it's not quite there yet, but we're getting closer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On the note of those Dodge Chargers having pretty significant price increases, have we done that for other things in here as well? Like I'm just, I guess maybe intrigued that the Chargers would cost $80,000, but the larger Ford SUVs would only cost $55,000 to replace, and same with like the excavator would only cost $62,000. Like I'm worried that we might be underestimating that or over. Like I don't know a ton. I just feel like an excavator would cost more than a police car, but I've never bought one of either personally. So I guess I know we updated those Chargers specifically. Are we still confident about the prices for the rest of these, or are those also going to have significant increases?
Yeah, we'll see increases. It's again what we can afford to put towards those future costs.
Yeah.
So we can bump that number up to the 80,000, but it doesn't necessarily mean we've got double the amount of money that we can put.
Well, but I just want us to be realistic. Like, if it is going to cost 80,000, then we know, oh crap, okay, that is going to take 4 more years to save up for or something. You know, yeah.
Yeah. Mike, do you have any thoughts on that schedule and any tweaks that we can make to be more reflective of?
I had a conversation with Gary today about the vehicles.
Okay.
And he's saying the prices are starting to go up. And we do need to update this schedule. So, will we have it done in time for budget? Probably not. Be it for the police vehicles, those will probably go up, those $55,000 ones, but those are the ones we just got.
Right.
And so we're just leaving it there. And it's like Chris says, we'll use the money as we got to buy a vehicle.
Yeah.
For the rest of them, right now we're doing pretty good. If you have to go out and get them, we'll deal with it at that time. It's a moving target right now with all the inflation plus the ordering. So this thing's probably going to change a little bit more. And will we see it in time for budget? Probably not.
Thank you. Counselor Causey?
Just as a follow-up, could you ask someone in the police department how many miles they put on a car before it has?
I will say too, it has to do with hours they run all of the time. So even though we live in a small town, the last town that I was in, I helped buy police vehicles there, and a lot of it's about just how much they're running. It's a big factor on
A very big factor.
maintaining them. Yeah.
Thank you. Counselor Andrade?
I remembered my question. To clarify, when you sell off a vehicle that we no longer can afford to keep due to like where it's cheaper to buy a new vehicle or whatever, um, does that money go directly back into funding the replacement vehicle, or like where does that money go?
As much as the police department would like it to go back to them, no, it goes
back to the general fund.
to the general fund as another revenue source.
Okay.
And then again, we then make our allocations every year based on this schedule, not based on whether or not we are able to make an extra couple $1,000s on the vehicle or not. So it just comes in as other revenue. So you'll see it in the budget as other revenue received.
Okay. Do we ever, thank you. Do we ever get like a list of those, of whatever it is that you sell, or is it like so numerous that it's like not even worth it?
It'll show up in the financials. That's revenue.
This year, we're going to separate the sale of equipment out of the income because it's inflating mentally and driving me nuts. Because I've got $1,000 budget for miscellaneous income, and it shows 20,000 because we sold 5 vehicles. Just an example. So you will see the sale of the equipment in the budget from now on. So you can ask questions.
Thank you.
We have a recommended motion. Kazi?
I move the city council approve the 2024-25 capital improvement plan as.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second it.
We have a motion made by Counselor Causey, seconded by Counselor Nielsen. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. So we're going to go back. We tabled this, so we're going to go back and look at the utility rates review. Counselor Causey.
I move to adopt resolution 2404 and the utility rates as presented on the employee and attachment effective July 1.
Thank you. We have a motion made by Counselor Causey.
I'll second.
We have a second by Counselor Nielsen. Any further comments, questions, discussion? Councilor Andrade.
In theory, I understand why these rates need to be what they are. And also, I think we're doing a great disservice to the community by passing them, especially with, I think is the first whereas, like these are not equitable. And I would like to see that changed as soon as possible.
Thank you. Councilor McMorrin.
I guess I just had a question for Councilor Andrade, based on that. What would you prefer we do?
I would like to see, I mean, I don't know what can be done legally, because I know there's supposed to be justification for certain things, but I would like to see an increase in, I'd like to see the multi-residential in with the residential section, and for the commercial usage to have higher rates, water and sewer rates, than in base fees than residential users, as I talked about during the work session. I think that's probably the main one, but I know there are some questions I have regarding the half factor for multi-residential, the base rate. And I have questions about irrigation amount, what that rate is like. And I think it would be too complicated to do a staggered increase in water rate, for like once you pass a certain amount, then your rate increases for each unit thereafter. I think it would be too complicated to do that without a rate study. But I think we could do something very roughly, like, yeah, I don't know what that would look like. I would need to see like what the statistics were like, the city's water use statistics, to kind of draw some sort of statistical, like when, like the 75th percentile, like have everyone above that pay like a higher rate once they hit that mark. I'm not explaining it very well, but I hope it made sense, kind of.
Ozzy?
I believe this was, excuse me, stated earlier, but couldn't these be addressed in conjunction with the rate study?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the discussions we've had up to this point would be, a lot of the concerns that Councilor Andrade's raised would be things that we would want a third party utility rates and, does that type of work to be able to bring some recommendations, look at other municipalities, what they're doing, and give different options for us to consider. It's not something that we've had the time or frankly have the expertise to be able to really look at. So we're dependent upon that rate study to look at that. And we also don't want to look at any one utility separate. We want to look holistically. We want to look long-term at our capital improvement plan and our master plans and what projects are out there, and how do you tie your utility rates to those projects, not only today and tomorrow, but looking out 5 and 10 years. So there's a lot to that. And we look forward to doing that rate study. We'd have done it this year if we were on track with the treatment plant and everything else, but that was why it was put on hold. But again, the intent is to get that done this year. I'm just not in a position to do it right now.
Thank you. Councilor McMorrin.
So for Councilor Andrade, I guess, like, would your preference be to not vote on this? Like, I'm trying to find the actual alternative to this, because I agree with you on all the things you said, or most at least, but it seems like we have to wait for the rate study to happen to get those answers. We don't have those answers tonight. So like, what should we approve instead of this? Because I think the reason I'm pushing on this a little bit is like,
That's fine.
I don't think any of us here love it. I don't think any of
No,
us want
definitely
to.
not.
But I think the assertion that doing that, like passing this, is a disservice to our residents or something, I just don't necessarily think that's accurate or fair. Because I think we all saw the $1 million in the hole on this that we will be if we don't find a way to tweak this. And I think being $1 million in the hole or not being able to replace aging sewer lines is also a disservice to our residents. And
Agreed.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out what is the, the third
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry, yeah.
oh no, you're good. No, I think we could hold off, and that we could, again, it wouldn't be finely detailed choices, because yes, we do need a rate study to um, really zero in on the best way to have these water and like all of these rates and base fees and such. But I think there is a way to do it relatively safely, like on a roughly in a relatively safe way. Again, like if the majority of your users of the residential people are using 8 units per household, but there are some that are using like 20. Perhaps you end up like anywhere from like 20 to like you have like a cutoff where like the top, I don't know, 5% even. Like if there's a clear delineation, I can't give like a good example without having the data, but I feel like there are some things we can try. Um, and with once we have that data in front of us, same with like the commercial, like okay, raise their rates and their base fees by, I don't know, $2, $5, and decrease, the residential by a, a dollar or something. Like, I don't, again, I, I think there's a way to do this roughly and relatively safely.
Chris?
No, I agree with Councilor Andrade. We don't have the data. We look at this as the admin committee. We wish that we had the data then. That was a couple weeks ago. We wish we had the data now. We don't have the data yet. So I think to make any other decisions other than this, what has been recommended by the committee and by our finance director, we know we need to do something. We know that this probably isn't enough, at least long term. Nobody's arguing that this is the long term solution, but what we're saying is for this year, this is the appropriate measure, and it's the least impact that we can have on our residents today that we feel is necessary to do today. And nobody likes to pass rate increases. And, we all would want to be the one to say, hey, I didn't vote to improve your rate increases when we know that everybody else is going to have to vote to improve the rates. At the end of the day, we all need to be responsible. We need to vote to improve the rate, increase the rate so that we can get through this next year until we can get the rate study in place. And so, we have to deal with the information that we have. And as much as I wish I had a bunch of other data to provide you, I don't. This is what we have. So I just don't have a lot more to add from a staff level other than you have what's in front of you that came out of the Finance and Admin Committee.
Thank you. Councilor Kazi?
I'd like to call the question, please.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 5-1. Thank you for that lively discussion. So next we have ordinance number 883, amending municipal code 2.15 on nominating petitions. Is that gonna be me or Ruth or Chris?
Ruth could probably address this better than anyone. She spoke to it at the Finance Admin Committee meeting as well.
I'll move just a little closer to the mic, and this will take like 30 seconds. This is basically a housekeeping ordinance. When we changed the charter, the eligibility requirement to run for city council changed from 6 months to 12 months. I just realized that that's actually encapsulated in our code also. So we need to clean that up and make it match our charter. And then basically this code says that we follow state statutes, state rules, and state forms. And therefore the last paragraph, which goes into extreme detail about our process, is not needed.
Thank you. So any questions? We have otherwise we can just do a reading of the title.
This is ordinance number 883, an ordinance amending Philomath Municipal Code 2.15, nominating petitions regarding qualifications and process.
Thank you. And we have a roll call vote.
Councilor Andrade.
Yes.
Councilor Causey.
Yes.
Councilor Lehman.
Yes.
Councilor McMorrin.
Yeah.
Councilor Nielsen.
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Ordinance is passed forward. With that, we will go ahead and go to council reports. We have,
I just had a quick question. So our city attorney's been here so that he could read that thing. With our new attorney, I'm assuming that there's not gonna be someone here unless we have an ordinance, is that?
Well, or unless you ask, you could have the city recorder or the mayor or somebody else read the requirement is to read the title.
it's not used specifically.
Okay, that was the question.
And him enough, we thought, might as well get something.
Let's do it on.
Okay, that was,
And that way I can look at it as getting paid by the word. It's much better.
Absolutely.
You can rotate who gets the honor of reading the ordinance by title.
Councilor Nielsen, did you want to give any further update on?
Well, I guess between Chris and I with the two stores, I have been actively recruiting, working towards the recruitment of a grocery store for our town. Have several emails back and forth, have a new flyer and social media going out requesting that citizens of Philomath, if they're interested in having a grocery store, contact Winco and requesting a store. There maybe what I would like to say is, would the council allow said type of flyer, if not this one, or would we be allowed to distribute these at City Hall or to put them out in the, what is that called out there? Kiosk, thank you, the kiosk. For those, it has a QR code, there's no cost involved, it's just publicizing to Winco that we are in the market for a grocery store in our town. So if the city would rather not have it be something that we promote in our city hall or with a kiosk, I'm okay with that, we'll just keep going the way we have been through private, I guess, friend, and such.
I did get an email about it, and that person was suggesting that you post it on the 13th, your lamp post if we had any. Or in the windows of businesses and that kind of
Yes, but still, I'm, and that, can I do that as a counselor, or does it have to be Teresa Nielsen as a private citizen? And I just need to know what, and because budgetary issues for the Nielsen family, as they are such, we did the first round of printing on our family budget. But the reality of everything else publicity wise, there's a cost involved. And so I just need to know what our city council would like to do and how we want to go about this publicity. And I'm good either way. And then we have another option for grocery stores as well that Chris is just definitely, I've already emailed that additional grocery store. Chris, did you want to address that?
Maybe not specifically, but what I heard in the work session was the council was in favor of adding that into the strategic plan, which is all I needed to hear to help with things like this. So again, we're talking about, do we put in the newsletter? Do we print off 100 copies of, whatever? So, just having that conversation of the work session gives me what I feel like I needed to be able to say, yeah, I can print off copies for you. We can push this out, put in the newsletter. So we will work strategic plan now, then we can work on it. I think this is a good example, and I hope you don't mind. you know, we always want to be a little bit careful of council members saying, I want to do this, and so I'm going to do it. But as a council member, you don't get to just take off your name badge, say, I'm just doing this as me. I mean, you can do that, but then you'd be like, hey, can we print out some more copies at City Hall for that? Well, now it's an us, right? And so we just want to be careful, and I think Councilor Nelson did a great job of approaching and saying, what do you think? And my response to her was, let's take it to the council, let's get buy off. If we can get it in the strategic plan and everybody's good with it, then great. Now the council's giving me some direction and we can go forward, as opposed to an individual council member giving me direction. So I think it was more than appropriate, but again, at this point, unless I hear differently from this body, I feel like I've got some liberty to go ahead and help promote this and help this effort. As futile as what it might be, or some might think it might be. We haven't hit our 10,000 in population yet. Again, we're not talking about spending a lot of time, a lot of effort. It's some little things that we can do to help push the effort forward. I'm more than happy to do that with the direction I've received tonight. So,
Councilor Andrade?
Oh, sorry. Was that all the update, Counselor Nielsen? Yeah. Okay, cool. So we had our second Black History Month event on February 22nd with the film screening, I keep doing that, of Buffalo Soldiers. And there was a Fighting on Two Fronts, I think was the rest of the title, with a question and answer afterwards, with the filmmaker and the executive director of Oregon Black Pioneers. I was unfortunately unable to attend again, but I heard there was a great turnout. Did anyone else from council or staff go and want to share anything?
Go ahead. Councilor Warren.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of us there. I thought it was a nice event. It wasn't a huge turnout, but I do feel a little bit like when you're in the high school auditorium, it seats like 600 people. So like if you get, you know, like 30 people there, it looks like no one, but that's still not bad. Right, yeah.
I counted 55.
Okay, all right. So that's pretty good. I'll take that. But yes, it always does look a little sad in the auditorium when the lights come up and it's like 50 people scattered throughout the 600 seats, you know, or 500, whatever. But yeah, I thought it was really nice. I enjoyed the conversation afterward. And I city, but you know, the volunteers that made those things happen, I think that set a good precedent for how we can try to be involved and bring people together around some of those things in the future. So yeah,
Good turnout.
I just want to give a shout out to Eric, because I think he does amazing job, you know, finding people and orchestrating. He is the impetus behind these great programs that we have, and they're well supported by Inclusivity and others, but I think Eric does a great job there. As a liaison to the school district, I would like to have seen more students there. I thought it was really good. It would have been a great opportunity for our students in our district to have that experience and to witness, I don't know, filmmaking with purpose. And so I would like to maybe address, maybe talking with how we can, I'm going to brainstorm this a little bit more, how we can really get kids there.
Yeah.
Maybe they will see that.
Well, we talked about this a little bit right after it. And I think it might be worth us thinking about like when the inclusivity committee does something specifically, but maybe the city in general, like if we can check in with the school district and see if they, because like if we're already bringing a speaker down from Washington, he's probably going to be here at 3 p.m. too, or we could ask him to come a little earlier and like, could the school district do an assembly with that same speaker we already paid for to come down, you know, and then maybe the school district picks like just something to kind of collaborate. It just felt a little silly to like bring these two people from out of town to the school and they never interacted with any children. You know, I know it's not our job as a city, but it just feels like there could be some good collaboration there. So I'm totally on board. I think
Mr. Crocker's classes come.
Right, yes.
Yes.
One or two city council meetings a year, and
Yeah.
those were when the room was full in the parking lot.
Yeah, and I mean, and I know we are
It was required.
Yeah, right. No, and I didn't think that back. But I think in general, like, I think even hearing the school board discussion about like the, 16th Street extension, like anything we can do to, I know we are two legally separate entities, but anything we can do to try to foster some more collaboration and partnership on just some of these little things will, I think, then lead to some more goodwill between the two organizations, because it always bugs me a little bit when it's like, oh, well, why would the city do something that helps them, or like why would the school district do something that helps us? And it's like, because that's taxpayers, I mean, I know the school district has a little bit more than we do, but it's mostly the same people that we're trying to serve, so it just feels a little silly. But yeah,
Would it be appropriate to just go to ASB with it also?
well, that's what I do sometimes. That's a me thing.
So we did do individual invitations that got dropped off to all three schools. We didn't send them to the Clemens Primary School, but elementary, middle, and high school all got individually color both sides invitations to the event. And we still didn't have a great turnout. That was the event, like there was a concerted effort to try to make sure the students knew they were invited to come and were aware of it.
Yeah.
But I think unless it's an assignment from a teacher or there's some additional coordination, given their own free will, they're just not going to show up to some events.
We thought about, but we thought about even like attending a staff meeting at this. I've thought about attending a staff meeting and saying this is an event, even if, because to encourage maybe that participation with the engagement of the teachers to say, yeah, let's really, but I also think there's a lot of positive peer pressure amongst youth. If they're at an assembly and they see the vitality of what is going to be presented, then maybe that talk amongst themselves, that positive peer pressure will motivate them maybe to come and attend and seeing what's there rather than just a title and a flyer. I think
it's a good topic for the inclusivity meeting to think through a little bit more on future events, on what's the target audience, and then how do you make sure that they can get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, just a thank you to all of this conversation and to everyone who helped put the events together. And then also I just wanted to thank Council Brewer for being so amazing, and we're going to miss you so much. I'm going to miss you so much, Jim. You're amazing. I hope you have an awesome retirement.
That's the goal.
We heard it's Fiji, is that right?
No.
One other thing, I just wanted to talk about the Samaritan Awards that happened, and another great event with pretty good turnout, and recognizing some wonderful folks in the community. Several of the city's nominations were selected, so I thank the council for taking the time to work on those. And it was just, I really love that event every year. It's sort of a reminder of the best parts of Philomath. So yeah, a big thanks to the chamber for always putting that on.
In my report, I'll just remind folks that the If I Were Mayor contest ends on the 1st. I don't have any submissions yet. And I did volunteer to go to any of the schools or any of the classes, but I haven't been invited. So I haven't made it over there. But yeah, so that ends on the 1st. I did get one teacher say that she's planning to give us a submission, so that's good. We will talk about that next month. And then so we all know about the closing of the mill, and it's very sad and heartbreaking in many ways. I was in touch with Oregon Works, which the county contributes money to and collaborates with, and County Commissioner Pat Malone is on their board. They're based out of Lincoln City. I emailed them. They were slow to respond, but they did respond. They thought it was spam. Weird, but it wasn't spam. Yeah, it was me asking if there would be any interest in them doing some sort of job fair or something to connect people who need jobs with available jobs. They did reply, and in their reply, they said that they're planning a job fair on March 1 from 10 to 3. I replied asking where and what will be done, and how are they getting the marketing out there, and can I share information? There's been no response. That's all.
Gonna be in Lincoln City.
Anyway,
Do you want to follow up on that?
I've
I've seen the emails, but I
You could-
expected a correspondence back,
Yeah, me
similar to
too.
you, probably. I'll follow up on it tomorrow.
And you can touch base with Pat, if anything, so Pat Malone
Yeah.
might be able to, but yeah, they don't seem to be very good at, they don't leave phone numbers, and I don't have any way to contact them.
Yeah, I'll reach out. I'll follow up.
It's a perfect agency.
So anyway, that's my update. But hopefully there'll be, I mean, if there's a job fair, I mean, I don't want there to be a job fair if nobody knows it's happening. Other one?
I'll keep it quick. I just wanted to say something that I've found interesting with a lot of our discussion, specifically though, some of the stuff we talked about tonight and the closure of the mill is just a big reason why mills around Oregon are closing is because the lumber market is not good right now. No one's buying lumber. And part of that is because no one's building houses. And so I think it all just kind of comes back around to like the housing crisis we're in has all these other side effects that I think as immediate as like homelessness and affordable housing. But the fact that we are not building any houses now is leading to these sort of ripple effects that are causing other issues. So just, we had a couple meetings, at work this week just about how like that is a significant contributing factor is just the market is down because interest rates are so high. So no one's buying lumber to build out of. So I think it's another rallying call for us all to address housing for all the reasons we already knew, but then also for some of our local industries that supply the things that go into housing. So
Build a house.
yeah, exactly. I call it, it's like, if you're trying to paint a house, you need the paint factory. If you're trying to build a house, you sort of need the house factory, which is a lumber mill. So, yeah.
Kazi?
But isn't one of the issues the cost of the lumber?
That is a big piece of it. It's just well, not the cost of the lumber, the cost of the logs, yeah. And that the cost of the logs has gone up while the demand has gone down, so that's why they're closed. Because if cost of logs went up and demand went up, great, we can keep selling. But it's sort of that inverse thing that is getting them.
Councilor Lehman?
Along those lines, how are we looking for filling any of our committee slots?
Nothing new on inclusivity, nothing new on the budget committee, and we've had several come in for the housing and economic development.
Fair number, like.
Honestly, I've not looked over the weekend, so it's, eight to 10 or so.
Nice.
And how many are we trying to fill? Like how many seats?
Not that many, so I think we'll end up, I'll have to look at it.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here tonight. With that, we'll adjourn.
Life.
I always feel like the Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do a good job.
It's my job.